Hey, what's up, guys? This is future me. After this video is pretty much done, I just wanted to say thank you guys for all the views and the support and the new subscribers on the channel. I definitely appreciate you. All the views and all the support that I got on the first video definitely gave me an incentive to finish up this video and bring it to you guys. I hope that the video length doesn't dismay you. I just did not want to expend any information that I want to give you. I want to be as detailed as possible. I do apologize. Sometimes my angles may not be the greatest, or sometimes I didn't have space, or maybe my audio kind of failed on me. This is what we have to deal with sometimes as car people trying to record and do things like this in these conditions. Sometimes they're not favorable, but we get through it. So I wanted to be as authentic and real with you guys and show you guys exactly what I went through while doing this over that length of time. So I hope this video is like the perfect white noise for you, whether you're doing homework or you're doing, remote work for your job, or whether you're just interested in doing this one day to your car, or whatever it may be. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you stick around for the entirety of it, and there's going to be more to come. So I'm going to go back to past me now so he can officially introduce you to this video. Enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video. I am here because I am finally doing the install that I've been putting off for like the last month or so. In the last video, I let you guys know that I was going to be doing some type of suspension modification to my car, and I was pretty sus about it. I'm not going to lie. You guys probably already guessed what it is, but I am going to be installing air suspension on my Mark 5 R32. Now, the reason why I'm going to be installing air suspension on my Mark 5 is because I have no idea. I bought a set of BC Racing coilovers for the car probably a month or so after I got the car from a fellow in West Nyack, New York. Talked him down to like $200 something. Needed some new suspension for the car, and I wanted some BCs. I know BCs is a relatively cheap coilover brand for cars, and I bought them. I think I bought them for like $275, and I brought them home. I tried taking them apart because I knew I wanted to rebuild them in some type of way, and they were seized to hell. I'm pretty sure I have the front somewhere up there. I'll put a picture of it if I can find it, but they were very seized. I put them in my vise. I ended up bending one of the shocks, so I ended up just doing basically rebuilding the complete fronts, getting new bottom mounts, new shock bodies, top mounts, all of that stuff. I checked the date code on them, and they were from 2017. So I said, oh, okay, they're old, but they should be fine. So I didn't rebuild the rears. So the rears stayed the same way they were. I think the only thing on the rears I changed were the locking collars. Put them on the car. The fronts took way too long to do because one of the bolts were seized. Cut it out. Either way, put them on the car. They rode fine at first. And then probably about a month after, the rears started to squeak loudly. Then they started to bang. Then they started to make some more noise. And then I realized maybe I should have rebuilt the rears if I just wanted to put a seamless set of coilovers on the car and send it. Either way, the rears are pretty much blown. I can push up and down on the car pretty much easily. I jacked up the car and I jacked up the rear, and I can compress the whole rear wheel with my hands. And you shouldn't be able to do that. Yeah, and then I'm going to show you exactly what I bought, how much I paid for it, and then we'll get into the video. This will be a longer video. It'll be my second video on this channel, second or third video on this channel, and it's going to be very long, but I hope that it'll be able to help somebody out who has one of these cars who want to do air suspension one day. So without further ado, I'm going to clean up the floor, and then I'm going to switch to the GoPro cam to show you what I got. Okay, people, I am on the GoPro now, so what I have is, it is the Airlift 3-piece system. I got this secondhand for like $1,300 from someone who's parting out their Q50, I think. I think I got a really good deal on it. It comes with 2 compressors. It already came with like the whole harness. The manifold is back there. Controller is back there as well. And it already came on this little pre-built wood block thingy, but I'm going to be building my own wood floor, so I'm not going to really be using that. And then in these boxes, which I'll take out when I'm going to actually install them, inside is the performance struts and bag. So it comes with the divorce rear setup. It actually comes with the shocks or struts. I mix up the two. You know what I mean? And then the front bags that come on the shock or strut or whatever the hell it's called. So that's pretty much it. And the kit that I got from the guy with the performance front and rear setup. I talked him down to 1,000, which was a really good deal because together I believe these go for 2,000 or something like that. I'll link it down below how much they go for. And these were packed in like last February. So relatively new setup, original boxes that it came in. I had him ship them to me and it comes with everything you need to install. Over here, I have some extra line that I got. This is also a 3/8 airline. This isn't a quarter inch. This is a 3/8 line, so it will air up and down faster. In this box, I have like a riv nut tool, because the guy who sold me this, he told me that the one that comes with it is not the greatest. It can end up breaking. Um, so I bought a riv nut tool, and I may end up needing this in the future. When I got the compressors from the setup from the guy, I had to order 2 new filters, so I have 2 new filters as well. And I also have some bulkhead fittings as well. So got some bulkhead fittings, some Euro tuning. I'll open the box up for you so you guys can see the fittings. Don't you just love packing peanuts? Aren't they the greatest? So yeah, got some bulkhead fittings. Here's the part number for the bulkhead fittings if you want to see it. If the GoPro would focus, please focus. Okay, whatever. I'll link it down below. But these are bulkhead fittings, 3/8 bulkhead fittings. 4 of them were like $44. I was going to get some Amazon specials, but with a very expensive setup and system that you're going to be running, and especially for something that you need to rely on to work, you don't want to cheap out on something like that. If you're going to run bulkhead fittings, get the good ones. Those are made by SMC, the same people who make the ports that are on the manifold. So just get the right stuff. Don't cheap out. Suck it up. If you're doing air suspension and you want to have quality parts, quality performance, and you don't want your stuff to break, just get the quality stuff. It'll save you headache in the long run. And also, if you're doing air suspension, you've already broken the bank somewhat already. So just get the quality stuff. Don't get a $4,000 to $5,000, when brand new system and then cheap out on something like a bulkhead. Just pay the premium. It's not even really a premium in my opinion, because you need the stuff. Like, it's not a premium. Just pay for it. I'm gonna stop saying that, but I have to emphasize it. Just buy the stuff. So those are my bulkhead fitters. Got them from Euro Tuning. Shipped really fast. So that's everything that I have as far as installation stuff. I have one more thing that I have to show you that I got for the install, and then I think I'm pretty much ready to bring the car inside. So I also have some wire. This is 12 gauge wire, red and black. You're gonna need this if you have like a larger vehicle or whatever. I bought this because when I got my harness, when they were taking uninstalling it, they just cut the wires. So that was probably like $12 on Amazon. So, and now I have some extra if I ever need some. So that's it. System here, bulkhead fitting there, wires there. Everything else should be cake. So I'm gonna bring the car in now and get them up on the quick jacks. Okay, so I'm here at the passenger side coilover. So if you reach behind the actual shock absorber and you reach down to the actual steering knuckle, you can feel that there's a little channel behind here. This is where you're going to put your strut spreader tool, something like this. I got this from Euro Tuning. It was a couple of dollars. Really good quality. I suggest getting a really quality one, so that it doesn't break on you, because this is probably one of the only ways you can get this open. I've seen people stuff like chisels and screwdrivers in there. Just get the tool. Make it easier for you. Yeah, so that channel you're going to feel in there, you're going to put the strut spreader tool in there, and then you're going to be able to drop this whole assembly down. When these cars came from the factory, they were McPherson strut suspension, so they're longer than the coilover itself. So in that case, you would have to undo the axle nut, undo the control arm bolts, push it out of the way, and then you'll be able to drop the whole assembly down to make up for that further length. Being that these are coilovers, they're obviously shorter, so I won't have to do that, which makes it 100 times easier. But if you have a stock car with stock suspension on it, just keep that in mind that you'll have to take that extra step. There is a way that you can do it that the Mark 7 crowd has figured out, called the 2x4 method. You look, do what you got to do to get it off, but I found taking the extra step of taking off the axle nut and the control arm nuts. You're going to reach back there, put the strut spreader tool in, but first what you have to do is you have to take out the pinch bolt. So here is the pinch bolt. Pinch bolt has a 14 millimeter triple square on the left side and an 18 millimeter nut on the right side. You will hold the triple square side and you will crank it on the 18 millimeter side and take this out. If you have not done your suspension yet and all of this stuff is old, replace your hardware. I did this hardware when I did my suspension a couple of months ago, so I'm not replacing it. And next thing up, what you're going to do is you're going to take off your sway bar end link. If you're doing like a regular like swap for your stock suspension, you can keep your end link in on the sway bar side. I'm not using these anymore because I'm using the ones that came with the airlift kit, so I am going to be taking this off from the sway bar side and chucking these with the sway bar end link with the coilover itself. Sorry. And then obviously what you have left is the 3 ones that hold it up at the top. And that's literally all it is. Not difficult, not hard. I believe the inside of the end link is a 6 millimeter. 6 millimeter on the inside. The nut itself is a 19 millimeter. By the way, I love these quick jacks. Such a game changer. Got them for Black Friday. One of the best automotive tools money can buy. They ain't cheap. They were cheaper on Black Friday. Okay, sway bar end link is disconnected. Throw the nut back on there. And at this point, we're literally, I guess we're 50% of the way to getting this out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the strut spreader tool in the back. For this one in particular, I believe the back end is a 13 millimeter. Yep, 13. So you probably will be able to see this as well based on the vantage point. But you will just go back here, find sweet spot, and then you can turn it either way, but turn it in a direction, and there we go. I'm going to go pop the hood. I believe it's 12 millimeters up top holding this in, and then it should just drop out. And literally everything I did on this side, you do on the other side, and that's it. It may not come out as easy for you the first time because, especially if you have a stock car with stock suspension on it, but there we go. One coilover out. I am going to repeat this on the other side, and then I will show you how to do the rear. And good thing with this car is that it's literally the same on all 4 quarters. So, okay, I did the driver's side front. Probably took me like 5 minutes, probably less than that to do. So now we're on the rear, and the rear is way simpler than the front is when the front was already pretty simple. So you can almost tell how like simple it is to at least just do coilovers. It's pretty easy, honestly. But now we are on the rear. So the rear, I believe, so once you have your wheel off, you'll be able to follow along. But at the top of the shock in the back, you will see 2 bolts that's going into the body of the car. I believe those 2 are 16 millimeters. So your 16 millimeters, I usually just get them off with the Milwaukee. So just zap these off. Hopefully yours doesn't fall into the abyss. Two 16 millimeters. Replace these as well, along with all your hardware. Just give you peace of mind. So once the shock is pretty loose from the top, normally I don't take those out first. Normally I just disconnect the control arm from the actual hub thingy, whatever this is. But it doesn't really matter. Either way, you have to get to this point. So next up, I will disconnect the lower control arm from the hub. So next what you're going to do is you're going to disconnect the lower control arm from the rear hub, and it's an 18 millimeter on both sides. So hold one side with the wrench and then just zap off the other side with whatever power tool you have, or you can use a ratchet and a ratchet if you want. I don't have time for that, so I'm going to use my Milwaukee to get it off. And it should come right out. One rule of thumb to remember which side the nut and then the bolt head goes on. I don't know if it really matters, but that's how they did it from the factory, so I'm going to believe them. The nut side always faces the front of the car. Same thing with the pinch weld bolt on the front. It's a nut side and a bolt side. Bolt side will always face the front of the car. So this way, and on the other side of the car, that way. Could be wrong. That's what I've noticed, so I'm going to send it that way. Don't lose your bolts. At this point, you should just be able to push down on your control arm and remove your components. In my case, I'll be removing the coil spring and the adjusting perch. And I'm now looking at it right now. There is a headlight leveling sensor for the rear in this car as well in the back. I just realized that I didn't remove mine. Luckily, I don't think mine is broken or anything. So when I get underneath the car, I'll just zap that off. But if you forget to do that, don't just go like wailing on this thing. Yeah, because you might break that. And I don't think it's that expensive, but if you don't have to replace something, then why replace it, right? We are now on to the nut on the back. I believe this is a 21 millimeter. It is a 21 millimeter. So I have a 21 millimeter. I think I'm going to remove that headlight level sensor so I can be able to lower this control arm out the way a little bit more, because it is currently in the way and I cannot get the socket square on that. So I will do that really fast. And we take it out. 21 millimeter comes right out. So it's literally that simple. That is literally the extent of the stock stuff, or if you have coilovers that you have to do, just a few nuts and bolts. So I'm going to do the other side, and we will have a bare canvas to install our airlift. Pretty exciting. I'll catch up with you when that's done, and we can move on to the fun stuff. Okay, please excuse the flickering of the lights. I have LEDs in the garage, and also I have this LED under hood light in here, so it may flicker on camera. I apologize. I'm just trying to show you guys what I'm doing. So I have all four corners, no suspension on it. I went underneath the car and I tried to figure out where exactly I'm going to put my bulkhead. So if you're going to do it this way with bulkhead fittings, part of your plight or your situation is trying to figure out what from the top is at the bottom. Being that this is an R32, it has way more components in the rear end than, say, a front wheel drive car, because it has the Haldex, the rear axles, in addition to like the rear subframe with all the other stuff under it. With that being said, I'm going to take out like the carpet and try to figure out where exactly I want I want my bulkhead fittings to be. I'm then going to try to figure out a way that I can see where the top translates to the bottom. Hopefully I can figure out a way. I know exactly where the gas tank is, so I know I won't be drilling into that, but like I said, I'll figure it out. So now I'm going to just take this all apart, and so I can get an idea of what I'm doing with it. This was back when Volkswagen actually put spare tires in their cars. And gave you a jack too. So I also do want to preface this as well by saying I do plan on keeping my spare tire and my jack. This is part of the reason why I want to do bulkhead fitting, so that I'll be able to just bring the airline in from right behind the rear seat. So I'll be able to just put the airline in right behind the rear seat so that it can come up through here and go into the manifold, because I think I'll probably get one of those airlift manifold like stands or whatever, so that it can stand up and the air ports can face this way, so that I can just have them come up like this. There's just something in my head, just a theory in my head. May end up changing, but that's what we're gonna do. So now that I have some type of access in the trunk, I want to just see what I'm working with back here, and if I'm able to figure out where I'm going to put the bulkheads. Alright, so it's a new morning. It was getting too dark last night, and I've been out here for a long time, but car's still up on the quick jacks. It didn't explode. Anyway, so last night I actually did find a spot to put my bulkhead fittings. So I don't know if you can see this. I'll bring the camera over in a minute, but I did peel back some of this trim that was right here, and there's a spot behind here by like the far right side of the trunk. There's just some spots that actually go down straight through. It's not a really thick piece of metal. I was able to get my hole saw and put it through, and then put the bulkhead fitting in here, and it looks pretty good. It's in a good spot. It's easy for me to be able to route my line from the front bag all the way down this side, and then put it straight into the bulkhead fitting, and then I could put the bulkhead fitting and then, you know, run wild with what I decide to do with the airline from there. So I will be cleaning up this trunk. Also, I'm having a bit of trouble with water intrusion. There's like a whole like pool in my trunk. So if anyone has any ideas as to like where water could get in back here, that would be really appreciated. But I'll handle that. I have a vacuum. I'll take the water out. Once again, please excuse the flashing. This LED is annoying. Anyway, so I put my bulkhead right here. And I feel like that's going to be a really good area to put it, because of the fact that I can just run the topside airline up here, and I can either put it underneath this trim, I can drill a small hole through this trim, and then I'll just be able to bring it up and put it straight to my manifold. I'll be able to keep all of my stuff back here. I'll be able to keep my spare tire and all the little inserts or whatever. Of course, some things may have to like get trimmed a bit to fit, but that's my bulkhead. Please ignore these wires and stuff like that. I have to tuck these things properly. But yeah, that's where my bulkhead's gonna go. I'm gonna put a second one right next to it for the rear bag, and then I'm gonna do the same on this side. I'm gonna peel this back, and I'm gonna put my bulkheads there, and that's the way that I'm gonna do it. So it's gonna have a nice little effect with two lines coming up to the manifold from here, two lines coming up from the manifold from here, and I'll do my best to make it look as unique as possible. So with that being said, I'm gonna get back to it. I'm gonna go and do my other bulkhead fitting, and then I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side, and then I'm gonna get underneath the car and actually start installing this thing. Actually do the riv nut for the top of the rear bag. So I'm gonna start with the rear and just move towards the front, So I'll show you guys how I'm going to do it on one side. If there's any difference with what I'm doing on the other side, of course, I will grab the camera and record that. But it's a really straightforward process. Based on all the information and instructions that Airlift gives you, this is probably one of the more easier cars to do the bags on. I'll put my other bulkhead in. I'll get the other side done. I'll try to give you guys a recorded look of underneath the car so you can get an idea of where I put it. Once again, I think I did mention this in one of the other clips, but I did see a video of somebody doing an R32 air suspension install in the UK, and they went through the battery box, sorry. So that may give you an idea of what I'm doing with the bulkhead fittings. If I have any issues, I'll put the camera back on and show you guys, but the next clip you should see is either underneath the car or you should see me start with the rear bags. Okay, people, so I put my two bulkhead fittings right behind here, and I honestly love this location because if you go underneath the car, which I will get on the GoPro and show you guys soon, there's plenty of space underneath the car to be able to route the line from the front all the way to the back. As far as the rear bag, it has to go through the control arm, the lower control arm, in order to go thread into the bag port on the bag itself. So I already checked. In theory, it should work. It's a pretty significant like bend. Not significant, but the line is gonna have to bend. It may make it a little tricky because this is 3/8 line, but I feel like I'll be able to make it work. If not, I'll have to get a little bit creative. Maybe use a union and to make take some stress off of a bend. But I think it's gonna work. I think it's gonna be fine. I don't think the line is gonna kink at all. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this. When I get underneath the car to show you how to install the real bag, I will just show you the clearing thing, I guess, on both sides with the bulkhead fittings, but I feel like this is going to work out really good. If you're going to go this route, of course, you have to drill into your car, boo-hoo, whatever. But just letting you guys know, get some extra line just in case you may have to use a union or you may need some extra line to be able to run it all the way back to these bulkheads. So right now, I'm pretty much done with the trunk up until the point I have to install the management. So yeah, I'm going to move on. It's another spot, a shot of the bulkhead on the right side. I'm going to move on to getting under the car and start installing the rear bags. Okay, everyone. I'm back. I wanted to show you guys what I did after I got the rear bag in, and of course you guys should probably already have seen footage of that, but I'm gonna take you to the front here. So I got, let me put the light on so you guys can see a little bit better. So what I did here is I put the front driver's side in, and one of the things that I honestly was like struggling with figuring out is how to adjust this ride height. How to adjust the shock itself, because it is independent of the bag itself. Of course, the bag adjusts your height, but the shock body also does too. So one of the things that I was struggling with was trying to figure out how to do that. So when I was editing this part and I was listening to how I was giving instruction to how I realized how to set my ride height and my air out height, I was chatting. So I'm going to try to explain it better here. So obviously, when I put my air strut on the car and I simulated me airing out by jacking up the control arm and compressing the bag, there was about a 1.5 inch gap between the top of the tire and the bottom of the fender. So what I did was I kept the jack underneath the control arm, still simulating me airing out. I took a measurement from the center of the hub to the bottom of the fender. Then I took a measurement of the top of the tire to the bottom of the fender. So I took a measurement of the gap that I did not want there. I subtracted that by the bottom of the fender to center of the hub measurement that I had, and that's what I essentially used as like a reference point. So then I took the measurement of the bottom of the fender to the top of the tire, went to the air strut, and essentially just lowered the air strut by that measurement, so that when I aired out, Now I would be basically top of the tire to the bottom of the fender. I measured 3.25 from the bottom of the bag to the top of the bottom mount. If you want to replicate my fitment when aired out, that's what you can do. Okay, people, so I'm back on the passenger side, and here it is installed. Just have to tighten the top ones, but pretty much replicated the same length. Ignore all those little bite marks and stuff. That's a long story. Anyway, so got the leader line on the right side with my measurement, and both sides are accurate. I jacked up the control arm and got it to basically simulate this side being aired out, and I pretty much had probably, I want to say, an inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch clearance between the axle and the frame, so no notching here. I'm probably going to say this for the third time. I am not laying frame in this car, but that's it. That's it in. So right now I'm going to get to the rear and put the shocks in for the rear. I'm probably going to adjust them a little bit, and then I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to play around with the rear adjustment a little bit more, because I do want some type of like forward rake in this car. I want the rears to sit a little higher than the rears when I'm at ride height and when I'm aired out. So I'll figure that out. But for now, I'm just going to go to the back, get those in, and start running lines. Yeah. Okay, people. So I'm about to get ready to prep the rear bags to go into the car. I believe that the previous owner was going to install these before he ended up selling them. So they usually, the rear bags usually come, the bracket for the bottom usually comes like this. You can see it's a little higher in comparison. Usually keep it high if you're going to use like your stock rear shocks, but because this is the performance bags, you basically have to cut this down. You can use like a sawzall or something. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot I had to do that before I actually took this up. So I'm gonna use this opportunity to show you guys exactly what you need to do. It already comes with like a faint line here. I'll probably end up getting a white marker and, you know, making that line a little bit more visible, and then throwing it into the vise and then just chopping it off with my sawzall. Here is the bracket for the lower bag. When they ship it either, if you're going to have the performance rear shocks, or if you're just going to use your stock shocks or whatever. I think that if you use any other type of coilover shocks, like for example, if my BC Racing coilovers, if the rear shocks were good, I could have just used those, just got the bags from Bag Riders or Airlift or whoever, and then use the BC rears, because they're literally the same thing. They're identical. And I don't know if that would have saved me money. That would have saved you money, obviously, because they're not supplying you with the rear shocks. So then you would cut these anyway. If you were just using regular non-adjustable rear shocks, you would keep this whole thing intact and just throw it in the car, so you would be able to skip this step. Being that this is performance rear shocks, I have to cut this to length based on the instructions. So there's already a scribe line here. You'll be able to see it. It's pretty clear. But in order for me to be able to see it a little better, I'm going to hope that this white marker works, so I can at least, yeah, it works. So I can at least get a line drawn, so I'll be able to cut it pretty precisely. I'm going to cut mine with a sawzall. So here you can see I cut the line. Could have been a little bit more straight, but it's going to work just the same. So I'm going to do the same on this side, and then I'm going to install this into the car. So here we go. I did the other side. It is a little uneven, but I'll probably end up just grinding this down a little bit with something to make it a little more even. But honestly, I don't care. It'll go in fine, so I'll put this in the car and get back to you when the rear is done. But that's essentially what you need to do. So since this one is already kind of put together, I'll show you guys what I'm about to do. And I'm going to be changing out the fitting on the bag. Now, the fitting on these bags in particular, I don't know if it is for all of the bags that come from, you know, airlift like this, but at least this one came with a 1/4 fitting. I obviously have a 3/8 system, so I will need to swap this out for some 3/8 fittings that I got from Summit Racing. So let me find a socket that fits this. I'll take this off really quick and swap this out. So I found the size. It is a 14mm. Okay, I just tried to do this by hand, and whoever put this together thought that they were Hercules. Nothing that the Milwaukee can't fix. Just get these out. I don't think these need to be on here this tight. I don't think so, but it's a 14mm, just so you know. So now I will have enough clearance to be able to take this fitting out. And the size of this fitting is also about a 14mm. So that's off. So now I will grab. I'm very sorry for the tightness in the garage. It's a 1-car garage, and working with what I got. So now we have the 3/8 fitting that I'll be putting on. So here you can see significantly larger, 3/8, nothing new there. So I just put some thread sealant. I am not a fan of Teflon tape because, you know, if you overdo it, it can get into your system and mess up about a lot of things. So I just put some of this sealant on, and I'm just going to tighten it down like so. I believe this has to be like 90 degrees. I believe that the fitting has to be like 90 degrees. So I'm going to tighten the fitting, see what size the fitting is. Actually, where's my adjustable wrench? I'm actually just going to use the adjustable wrench since I have the clearance for it. Why am I using this old ass adjustable wrench? Don't think it has to be too tight. Get it tight enough to where you're comfortable, and then you just rotate the fitting itself 90 degrees. I believe that's what the book calls for, it to be like 90 degrees this way, so that when you put your bracket on, because this is going to sit in like this, so the 90-degree fitting has to face towards the inside of the car. So of course when you get under there, you'll be able to, you know, do your fine adjustments and all that. But just keep it in mind, has to be towards the fitting has to be facing the inside of the car, because the fitting has to be facing the inside of the car because the airline comes through the bottom of the control arm. So that's the way that we run it on these cars. So I'm going to tighten these back down. I'm not going to crank it down like with the power of God like the last person did. Just tighten it down like that. So as far as this rear bag goes, this one is pretty much set to go in the car. The only thing I'll have to do is put the nut cert in the spring perch, and then I can just tighten this down and set this into the control arm. So actually the way that I assembled it and the way that the previous person who owned this assembled it is actually wrong. There's a little plate right here that needs to go before this bracket. So I'm just going to take these off again and put that on. It's a good thing to read the instructions. Yep. And then this goes on. There are also 2 locking washers that need to go on as well. And I just lost one. And I just lost another one. Don't you just love installs with a whole bunch of stuff? stuff. Cool. So that's on there like that. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing, but I have the spring perch and I have my drill. Try to make it as straight as possible, and I'm just gonna drill. So it was getting caught up a little bit. Well, what I did is I just went forward and backwards, and now I have the hole large enough. So now I'm gonna get my rear nut gun. It may be a little awkward because I have to lower the control arm a bit because I have the long style rear nut gun, and we're gonna see how this goes. Okay, so I'm holding my head perfectly still with the GoPro on my head so you can see that I have installed the rear nut at the top. The tool that I had was a little bit too awkward. I should have gotten either like the pistol style one, but I'll end up getting a pneumatic one in the future when I end up needing it. But I did just use the tool that came in the package, and it was actually pretty simple, pretty easy. It got in there. I did end up having to use the 17/32 drill bit because the 1/2-inch hole was just a little bit too small. So I'm gonna get the bag in here now and explain what I did. The bag is in, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Just if you're on a Quattro vehicle, R32, A3 Quattro, whatever all-wheel drive vehicle on this chassis, put the spacer on first, spin the bag on, and then you're going to have, you're gonna have the lower bracket, and you want the fitting to face towards the center of the vehicle, because the line is going to come from underneath the control arm into the control arm, and then it's going to go in here. This is not the end though, because there is a little washer that you have to put on the underside to tighten everything up, and after that this rear bag should be in. I'm going to put together the rear strut, and that's pretty simple. Literally all you have to do is just take your top mount off and put it on the one that's provided. If you have the Performance Series rear shocks from Airlift, and then that's it. So I'll show you what that looks like after I'm done. So this is what a completed rear section looks like. I got the shock in, collar's still kind of loose. I'll probably do some, so I can do some extra adjustment when I get it off the quick jacks. Bag is fully installed. I still need to put the little locking nut thing on the bottom, but I also ran my airline. The instructions will probably give you better visuals on how to run your airline, and of course it'll vary based on how you're running your airline. But me, I just run the airline through the control arm like they said. Give yourself enough airline, because I'm assuming that when you air up, it will take away from some of the length of your airline, is what I'm assuming. Under here, I ran it up top here, no moving parts, not near the exhaust, and then ran it up here to my bulkhead fitting there. And my rear bulkhead fittings will be the bulkhead fitting closer to the rear of the car, just so I don't make a mistake when I'm going to plug these into the manifold. So that's that one. So this is what a completed side, except for this. Yeah, sorry about the audio here, my mic died, but I just wanted to show you guys how I ran my lines. So I'll show you guys on this side. There's two panels here. They fasten to the body with 10 millimeters, really easy to come down. And then what I did is I just ran my leader line, zip tied my leader line to like the brake line in the front, and then ran the whole line underneath the panel, zip tied them to the fuel lines, and then on this side zip tied it to the parking brake, ran it up over the filler neck, over the upper control arm, and then over the subframe area right here, and then brought it back down, and then just zip tied it to this part of the subframe, and then up to my bulkhead fittings. Literally the same thing on the other side. Really easy to do, especially with the bulkhead fittings, because you know where you're going to be sending your line to. And I just gave my airlines a bit more extra line, just in case, because this is 3/8 line, and I I just didn't want the line to not have enough, wiggle room, and also because 3/8 line is not as malleable and flexible as the 1/4 inch line. So just give yourself a little bit extra line if you're going 3/8, so that you don't kink your lines. So I wanted to show you guys where my leader line is, with the line going to the back. So it's right here, right next to the control arm bracket that goes next to the subframe. Here you can see neither the line or like the leader line touches the little bracket right here. It's literally just the fitting part that's touching here. And that's fine because, it's not going to rub through this metal or anything. Maybe I'll put like a soft wrap around this or something just to, get a little bit more peace of mind. But it's safe right here. And I have everything zip tied and whatnot. So nothing is going anywhere. And I have it the same way on that side as well. I don't know how good you can see it, but it's also on the passenger side. So all in all, pretty good. So right now I'm at the point where I put the trunk floor in, and I put the compressors and the tank in. Because I got this secondhand, the system secondhand, I'm grateful that it was already on this little stand or whatever. So I'm gonna keep it in here like this temporarily because I do plan on making a false floor for the car. So just to make sure that everything is right, give the car a shakedown run, get my everything in, in order, blah, blah, blah. I am going to be leaving this in here for now. But anyway, onto the wiring. Being that this is a Mark 5 R32 and we have the VR6 in the front, our battery is back here, which makes this whole install with the wiring so much more easier because the only two things that have to go to the front of the car is the part of the harness for ignition source. So you're going to add like a butt connector to a what's it called? Add a fuse. You'll put that into your fuse panel, your fuse box, find an ignition source, and then that will cause these to turn on once the car gets power from the ignition. And then you'll run the controller cord to the front. So those are the only two things that you'll have to run to the front on a Mark 5 R32. For other cars, it may be different because battery is in the front, so you'll have to fish all this stuff to the front. So I'm a person who, I love doing wiring, but I hate trying to like stuff it in between panels. So this is going to make this whole lot easier to do on this car because of that. In addition to the fact that this harness is secondhand, it also is a harness that came with the dual compressors, being that there's two. Duh. A little confused. I was like, why do I have two like 12 gauge wires, and where does it go? So I just read this. It said second compressor. So this is the harness for the second compressor, and the main harness that goes to your battery source. They both have a inline fuse that goes on the positive end, and then the negative is whatever, and they both run to the battery. So just keep that in mind if you buy one of these management systems secondhand, and it comes with two compressors. If both leads that have the 12 gauge wire, they both go to the battery, and make sure you put an inline fuse on the positive side. I have inline fuses that I purchased in advance because I was getting ready for this, so I should have everything. And the way that I'm just going to tuck all of this together, I'm going to, obviously this is, like I said, this is temporary, but just to give you an idea of what I'm going to do, I'm going to most likely zip tie everything together that's going to the battery. So these two harnesses, I'm going to zip tie together, run underneath, and run straight to the battery, put it in the battery tray, hook it up to the battery, and just call it done. Ignition source and the controller harness, I'm going to run up to the front, and I'm going to just tuck it in to the sides. And everything else, I'm just going to tuck it behind the foam, tuck it behind the seat, in between the foam, just run it down here, and that should be it. The only wire that you should be able to probably see is the one that goes to the manifold. Manifold will go right here, and that's how it's going to be. So all in all, I'm very grateful that the R32 has the battery back here because, trust me, this wire is thick as hell, and I do not want to have to deal with that. So I'm going to get this done, and I'll show you what it looks like after I'm done. So I wanted to show you guys the trunk setup, temporary trunk setup. I have them bungee corded down because this wooden base is not affixed down to this floor yet. Here you can see my compressor harness for the second compressor is hooked up right there. It's literally just positive to positive, negative to negative. And then with the wiring that goes to the battery, it's literally just put a spade, some ring terminals actually, sorry, on the negative ends. Those go straight to the battery, and then put an inline fuse on both positive ends. If you're only running one compressor, just put one inline fuse on the positive end that goes to the battery. But that's really only if you have a second-hand harness. If you get this brand new from Airlift, they'll provide all of that. I did run into one issue with this compressor here. It wasn't kicking on. It was ticking when I, hooked everything to power. Turns out it was just a bad relay, so I got a Viair relay from Amazon. It's about $6. Plugged it in, and this compressor kicked on. So I'll show you all the intricate wiring in the next video, because that's when I'll be doing my false floor and finalizing all my wiring. I hate wires, so like you can see wires there. I'm going to finalize all my wiring and just put everything together the way I want it to be, and that'll be it. So yeah, this is the trunk. And I'm also going to get another one of these trims right here. Mine was all scuffed up and nasty, and they're pretty cheap from the dealer, so I ended up getting one. So as I was putting my clips together, I realized I didn't get an outro for you guys. So it's future me again. So if you made it this far, I definitely appreciate you. This is my second video on this channel, and I've already hit a video past the hour mark. So I really appreciate if you had stuck around, or if it's not an hour, whatever. It's been a long video. Anywho, in the next video on this car, I will be showing you me doing my laminate flooring for the trunk and the final mounting position for my tank, my compressors, and my wiring harness as well. I also will be going a little bit more in depth of how I run my wiring, where I put my fuse slot, things of that nature. I'll show you all those things in the next video. Also, I'll be taking you guys along for a ride, giving you my first impressions on the air ride system, any pros and cons that I have, because I may not have any cons. I may not have any pros. It may just be like, oh, okay, I just upgraded my suspension, because remember, my old suspension was blown. So I'll take anything that I can get, but I'll have all of that in the next video. I'll also give you some more visuals, and probably just talk to you about whatever else is in the future for the car. I do have a lot of other stuff that I want to do to the car and just take you along for it. Whether it's already been done or not, I don't care. I'm going to take you along for the journey of this R32, because this car is just getting started. So once again, I do appreciate you guys sticking around and watching the video. It means a lot to me. And if you learned anything from this video, or just enjoyed it, or it was the perfect white noise for you, consider leaving a like and subscribing. I would definitely appreciate it. In the next video, it will not be on the R32. It will be on something else. So stay tuned for that. Oh, and before I go, I totally capped to you guys. The car was not clean in this video, but I promise it will be in the next one. Deuces, and I'll see you guys in the next one.